The galaxy is full of light, but also full of fear. In the far corners of space, people whisper about a shadow that moves between the stars. They do not speak his name loudly. They call him only the Destroyer. He is not human. He is something else, taller, stronger, older than any soldier humans have ever known. His skin is marked with scars from battles that lasted longer than human lifetimes. His eyes are said to shine like fire. His voice, when heard, makes even warriors freeze. Planets tell stories about him to frighten their children. Be good, or the Destroyer will come. For many, he is not just a story. They have seen his ships. They have seen the wreckage left behind. Entire fleets have vanished when he appeared. Some say he can kill thousands with a single command. Others say he fights alone, with his own hands, and no one survives. Where he walks, silence follows. Where he fights, nothing remains. No one knows why he attacks. Some believe he is sent by dark gods. Some think he is a monster born of war. Some whisper that he is not even alive, that he is death itself, wearing armor and carrying blades of fire. But whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. Across the galaxy, he is feared. Worlds tremble at the sound of his approach. Armies run before they even face him. No one dares to speak of mercy. No one dares to believe he has a heart. And yet, he carries a secret. The Destroyer hides something that no one in the galaxy would ever imagine. For inside the cold armor, beneath the mask of terror, there is a memory of a human girl. It began long ago, when the Destroyer was wounded. His enemies had trapped him. His great ship had burned. He fell onto a small, forgotten planet at the edge of the stars. He should have died there. The galaxy hoped he would. But fate had other plans. On that quiet world, a young human girl found him. She was small, fragile, and powerless compared to him. But she was not afraid. While the rest of the galaxy cursed his name, she looked at him with simple eyes and saw something different. She gave him water. She gave him food. She spoke to him in her soft voice, as if he were not a monster, but a man. And in that moment, the Destroyer felt something he had never felt before. Not fear, not hatred, not war. He felt warmth. Now, as he travels from system to system, burning his enemies and striking fear into billions, that memory follows him. He hides it deep inside, but it never leaves. The galaxy thinks he is a beast, a shadow, a nightmare made real. But the truth is more complex. He is feared by countless worlds. But in his heart, he carries the kindness of one human girl. The galaxy will never know. If they knew, they would laugh, or they would try to use her against him. So he keeps her hidden, like a treasure no one can touch. But secrets cannot remain secrets forever. Whispers move across the stars. Captains speak of strange patterns in the Destroyer's attacks. He disappears for weeks, sometimes months, only to return more violent than before. Rumors grow. Where does the monster go when no one sees him? Some believe he returns to his dark masters. Others think he goes to build new weapons. But the truth is much simpler. Sometimes he disappears because he is visiting the human girl. She does not know the whole truth about him. She does not know that the galaxy fears him more than death itself. She only knows that when he comes to her, he is quiet. He listens to her words. He sits in silence and watches her laugh. For her, he is not the Destroyer. He is only a strange friend, a wounded traveler who returned again and again. But if the galaxy ever discovered her, she would be in terrible danger. The Destroyer knows this. That is why his enemies fear him even more. He fights not only for himself, but also to keep her safe. His rage, his violence, his storms of fire, all of them hide a single truth. The galaxy fears him, but he fears losing her. And so, the story begins. A monster to billions, a nightmare to soldiers, a shadow to planets, but to one human girl, something else entirely. On a quiet planet far from the great wars of the galaxy, life was simple. There were no starships flying across the skies, no armies marching, no rulers giving orders, only green fields, flowing rivers, and small towns where people lived in peace. In one such town lived a young human girl. She was not a soldier, not a leader, not even someone of importance. She was just ordinary. But sometimes, the most ordinary people hold the most extraordinary hearts. Her name was not known across the stars. She had no fame, no power. She spent her days working, helping others, and dreaming of faraway places. But she had something many in the galaxy had forgotten: kindness without fear. The day she first met the destroyer, the skies above her home shook. Fire streaked across the heavens. A burning starship tore through the clouds and fell into the forest beyond the town. Everyone in the village was afraid. They whispered of war, of death, of monsters falling from the sky. But the girl was curious. While others stayed hidden, she walked toward the smoke. Her feet carried her through broken trees and scorched earth until she saw him, the being the galaxy feared. He was lying on the ground, his armor broken, his body torn with wounds. Even wounded, he looked terrifying. His size was massive. His skin bore scars older than her lifetime. His eyes, even half closed, glowed with an unnatural light. Most people would have screamed. Most would have run. But she did not. She felt no fear. Instead, she saw someone in pain. And to her, pain was something that needed comfort, not judgment. She knelt beside him. "You need water," she whispered, her voice calm, as if speaking to any other traveler. She carried a small flask and pressed it to his lips. He hesitated, his eyes narrowing as if expecting poison. But when the cool water touched his tongue, he drank. The destroyer had faced armies that begged for mercy. He had heard leaders cry for peace. But never had he heard a voice so soft, so unafraid. The girl gathered herbs from the forest and pressed them to his wounds. She worked with steady hands, not knowing who he truly was. To her, he was not the destroyer. He was simply someone broken, someone who needed help. In that moment, something changed inside him. For centuries, he had been called a monster. Entire worlds cursed his name. Even his enemies had no words for him but fear. But this human girl, she called him nothing. She gave him no name. She gave him no fear. She gave him only care. For the first time in his endless life of war, he felt warmth. Not the heat of fire, not the rage of battle, but something quiet, something gentle. The days passed. He healed slowly. At night, he would sit outside her small home, listening as she spoke. She told him stories of her childhood, of her village, of the simple dreams she had. She spoke of laughter, of music, of the stars she wanted to see one day. He listened in silence. He had traveled those stars, seen countless worlds, destroyed countless ships. Yet the way she described them made everything sound new again. Sometimes she laughed. And when she laughed, the sound broke through his armor more than any weapon ever could. But in the shadows of his heart, fear grew. Not fear of battle, he had no fear of that. Not fear of death, he had faced it too many times. His fear was different. His fear was that the galaxy would discover her. If they knew that the most feared warrior in the galaxy cared for one human girl, they would use her. They would come for her. And the thought of losing her was more terrifying than any army. Still, he could not stay away. Even after his wounds healed, he returned. Again and again he found his way back to her world. No one followed him, for no one could imagine that the destroyer, the nightmare of galaxies, would spend his time with a single human. She asked him once, "Why do you come back?" He said nothing. His kind did not have words for what he felt. But his silence was enough. She only smiled as if she already understood, and so a bond grew between a monster and a girl, between fear and innocence, between darkness and light. To the galaxy he was still the destroyer, a shadow to fear, a monster to curse. But to her, he was something else, a friend, a protector. someone who listened when no one else did. And slowly, without knowing it, she became the only human he could not forget. The galaxy is wide and endless, filled with countless races, mighty empires, and ancient secrets. But for the destroyer, all of that power and fear meant nothing when he returned to the little world at the edge of the stars. There, in that quiet place, he was not a monster. He was only a visitor. The human girl welcomed him each time he came. She never asked him for gifts. She never asked for protection or riches. She only asked simple questions. Are you hungry? Did you travel far? Do you want to hear a story tonight? For a being who had fought across 1,000 battlefields, those words felt strange. He was used to hearing, surrender, beg, run, die. Never before had someone asked him if he was hungry. At first, he answered with silence. His kind did not share feelings, and he had no words in her language. But over time, he began to respond. Slowly, clumsily, his deep voice tried to match her simple words. Yes, he would say when she offered food. Far, he would admit when she asked about travel. And sometimes, when she asked if he wanted a story, he would nod. So the girl told him stories. She spoke of the rivers that froze in winter, the stars she used to count at night, and the friends she once had before they left for faraway cities. She told him of little adventures, climbing trees, exploring caves, chasing wild animals. To her, they were small things. To him, they were treasures. The destroyer had seen galaxies burn, empires fall, and armies break under his hand. Yet these tiny stories of human life felt more powerful than any war. One evening, as the firelight flickered in her small home, the girl asked him, "What about you? Do you have stories?" The destroyer looked into the fire for a long time. His memories were endless. Worlds drowned in flames, enemies torn apart, victories without joy. They were not stories fit for her ears. Finally, he spoke only one sentence. "I was always alone." The girl's smile softened. She reached across the small table and touched his hand, her fingers resting against the cold armor. "Not anymore," she said simply. The destroyer felt something inside him shift. The galaxy had given him fear, power, and endless battles. But this human girl had given him something greater, companionship. He did not understand it fully, but he knew he needed it. And so he came back again and again, but the galaxy was not blind. Commanders noticed that the destroyer vanished for long periods, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. When he returned, he was more violent, more unstoppable, as if trying to bury something under fire and death. Whispers spread among the fleets. Why does he disappear? Where does he go? Some said he was returning to his masters. Others said he was creating new weapons. But a few began to suspect the truth, that even monsters have secrets. The girl, of course, knew nothing of this. She only knew that her strange friend appeared and disappeared without warning. She asked him once, "Do you have another home?" He shook his head. "No home." "Then this is your home now," she said, with the simplicity of someone who believed her own words. The destroyer stared at her. No empire had ever offered him a home. No army had ever welcomed him. Yet this one small human believed he belonged. Here. He did not answer, but he returned more often after that. In time, he began to learn more of her world. He walked with her through the fields, towering above the farmers who glanced at him in fear but said nothing. He carried wood for her fire. He repaired her roof when storms broke it. His hands, made for war, began to build instead of destroy. At night, he would sit outside, watching the stars. The girl would join him, pointing at the constellations. "That one looks like a wolf," she would say. He would tilt his head. To him it looked like a weapon. But when she laughed, he nodded and said, "Wolf." Slowly, her view of the universe began to change his own, yet shadows still lingered. In the dark corners of the galaxy, hunters were searching. They had noticed his disappearances. They wanted to know where he went and why. To them, the destroyer could not have weaknesses. But if he did, they would use it. And so, unseen by the girl, Eyes began to turn toward her world. Ships moved in silence, gathering in the black void beyond her star. The destroyer did not yet know. The girl could not imagine. For now, they lived in peace. Two worlds meeting in a fragile bond, but peace never lasts forever. The girl's planet had always been quiet. Seasons passed with gentle winds and falling rains. Children played in the fields, old farmers worked the soil, and nights were filled with the songs of insects under the stars. It was a world untouched by war, but war never stays away forever. Far, above in the endless black of space, ships drifted like silent shadows. They belonged to hunters, soldiers from rival empires who had sworn to destroy the one called the Destroyer. For years they had failed. His strength was too great, his fury unstoppable. But now they had noticed something new. His disappearances. His strange patterns. Each time he left the battlefield, he returned with even greater rage. Each time he vanished, whispers spread. The hunters began to follow. Through broken star maps and captured signals, they traced his movements. And at last they found a clue, a small forgotten world at the edge of the galaxy, a place no empire cared for, a place where no one expected a monster to hide. On the surface of that planet, the girl lived her simple life, never knowing the danger above. She sang as she gathered water, laughed with children in the village, and waited for the tall figure who sometimes came to her door in silence. To her, he was a strange friend, a protector who never spoke much but always listened. She never guessed that the galaxy called him the Destroyer. She never guessed that armies trembled at his name. But soon, she would learn. One night, the stars burned brighter than usual. At first, the villagers thought it was just the season of comets. They gathered to watch the streaks of light in the sky. But the Destroyer, who had returned that evening, looked up and knew the truth. Those were not comets. They were ships. His eyes narrowed. His hand gripped the hilt of the blade at his side. The hunters had come. The girl noticed his silence. "What is it?" she asked softly. He looked down at her, his voice low, almost like a growl. "Danger," she frowned. "Danger? From what?" He said nothing more, but the fire in his eyes told her everything. Above, the hunters prepared. They had not come to fight him directly. They knew his power. Armies had fallen before him. Fleets had vanished under his hand. No, this time they would strike at what he protected. They had seen the girl. Their spies had watched her from orbit. A small, powerless human. A weakness. His weakness. "If we take her," their commander whispered, "he will follow. Even monsters bleed when their hearts are broken." The next day, the girl went to the forest to gather herbs. She walked the same path she always had, humming to herself. But the forest was not the same. The air was too quiet. The birds had vanished. Even the wind seemed afraid. Then she saw it. A shadow moving between the trees. Tall figures in dark armor, their weapons glowing. They were not from her world. Her breath caught. She took a step back. One of them spoke, his voice cold. "Human. You will come with us." She shook her head. "No, I don't know you." The soldier raised his weapon. "You will come or you will die." The girl's heart pounded. She wanted to run, but her legs froze. She had never faced war. She had never seen soldiers. For the first time, fear truly filled her chest. And then, the forest shook with a roar. The Destroyer appeared, his massive form crashing through the trees. His eyes blazed like fire. His voice thundered across the clearing. "Leave her." The hunters turned. For a moment, even they felt the weight of fear. They had tracked him for months, but to see him with their own eyes was different. The monster of the galaxy stood before them, alive, furious, unstoppable. The girl gasped. She had never seen him like this. She had seen the quiet friend, the wounded traveler, the silent protector. But now she saw the Destroyer, the nightmare the galaxy whispered about. Her hands shook. Was this truly the same being she had welcomed into her home? The soldiers raised their weapons. Beams of light shot through the air. The ground exploded around him. But the destroyer moved like a storm. He tore through the hunters with terrifying speed, his blade cutting through armor as if it were paper. His roar echoed like thunder, shaking the forest itself. The girl watched in silence, frozen between fear and awe. When it was over, the forest was quiet again. Broken weapons smoked on the ground. The soldiers lay defeated, scattered like leaves, in the wind. The destroyer stood in the center, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His eyes glowed, his hands still stained with battle. Slowly, he turned to face the girl, and in that moment she truly saw the monster the galaxy feared. Her eyes widened. She stepped back without meaning to. Her heart raced, not only from the soldiers but from him. For the first time, she felt afraid of the one she had called a friend. The destroyer saw the fear in her eyes, and though he had crushed armies without mercy, that single look pierced him deeper than any weapon. He lowered his blade. His shoulders sagged. For once, the nightmare of the galaxy looked fragile. The girl whispered almost to herself, "What, are you?" He did not answer, because he knew, whatever words he gave, she might never see him the same again. And in his silence, the bond between them trembled. The forest was silent after the battle. Smoke curled from broken weapons and the smell of burned metal filled the air. The hunters lay scattered, their armor cracked, their bodies motionless. At the center stood the destroyer, his blade dripping, his chest rising with heavy breaths. His eyes glowed like fire in the dark. And not far away, the girl stood frozen, her hands trembling, her heart racing. She had never seen him like this. Until now, he had been her quiet visitor, her strange companion, the one who listened to her, stories in silence. But tonight she had seen the truth. He was not just a traveler. He was not just a protector. He was the monster the galaxy feared. Her breath shook as she whispered, You killed them all." The destroyer looked at her, his gaze unreadable. Slowly he lowered his blade, letting it fall heavy against the ground. "Yes," he said, simply. The girl stepped back. Fear crawled through her body. She wanted to run, but her feet felt heavy. For the first time, she was afraid of him, not because of what he had done to others, but because she realized how easily he could destroy her too. The destroyer saw it. He saw the fear in her eyes, and it pierced him deeper than any wound. For centuries he had been hated. Armies cursed his name. Worlds trembled when he arrived. None of that mattered. But her fear broke him. He dropped to one knee, lowering his head, a giant bowing before someone small. His voice was low, almost broken. "I did not come for war. I came for you." The girl's heart ached at his words, but the images of his violence burned in her mind, the way he had torn through soldiers like a storm, the roar that shook the ground, the fire in his eyes. She turned away, unable to look at him. That night, she returned to her village in silence. The people saw the smoke rising from the forest. They whispered about strange lights and the sound of thunder, but no one dared to ask her what had happened. The destroyer did not follow. He stood alone in the forest, staring at the ground, the weight of her fear pressing heavier than any weapon. Days passed. He did not return. The girl sat by her window each night, waiting, her thoughts torn. She remembered the kindness he had shown, the way he listened, the way he carried wood for her fire, the way he sat quietly while she told stories. But she also remembered the monster, the fire, the destruction. Which one was real? Which one was he? Her heart could not decide. Far above, the hunters gathered again. News of their failure spread quickly. Their commander was furious. "We were close," he hissed. "We saw his weakness. The girl is the key. Next time we take her before he arrives." So the hunters prepared once more. This time they would not just test him. This time they would strike directly at the girl. One evening, when the sky turned gold with sunset, shadows fell over the village. Ships descended silently, their dark hulls blocking the light. Panic filled the streets as villagers screamed and ran. The girl froze as armored soldiers marched into the square. Their weapons glowed, their voices cold. "Take her," the commander ordered. Hands grabbed her arms. She struggled, shouting, but she was too small, too weak. "Let me go," she cried. The soldiers dragged her toward the ship. Fear swallowed her whole. She did not know if anyone would come. She did not know if the destroyer still cared. But then, the ground trembled. A roar split the sky. From the shadows of the forest, he came. His massive form struck fear into the soldiers instantly. The villagers fell silent, staring at the monster they had only heard in stories. The destroyer charged. His blade burned with light. His roar shook the earth. He cut through the soldiers like paper, each strike a storm of fury. The girl cried out as the soldiers pulled her toward the ship. But before they could take her, the destroyer leapt. His body crashed down with unstoppable force, sending shockwaves through the ground. The soldiers flew back, their weapons shattering. In moments, it was over. The girl lay on the ground, shaken, her clothes torn from the struggle. She looked up at him, her chest rising fast with fear and relief. He reached out a massive hand, not with claws, not with violence, but gently, carefully, as if she were made of glass. "Safe," he said. His voice was low, almost pleading. The girl's eyes filled with tears. She had been seconds away from being taken. She had been powerless. And yet, he had saved her. But still, her fear remained. She whispered, her voice shaking, "Why? Why protect me? You are death to everyone else." He knelt before her, lowering his head so that his fire-bright eyes dimmed. "Because you are not everyone else." Silence fell between them. Around them, the village stared in shock, their fear of him burning stronger than ever. But the girl saw something no one else could see. For just a moment, behind the monster, there was a shadow of something human. And, though fear still lived in her heart, another feeling began to grow, something she could not yet name. The village had never been so quiet. Smoke rose from the broken weapons scattered on the ground. Soldiers who had come to take the girl were gone, destroyed by the very monster who now stood in the center of the square. The villagers stared from behind doors and windows, their eyes wide with terror. To them, he was not a savior. He was death, walking. His shadow fell across their homes like a curse. But to the girl, he was something else. She stood trembling, her heart torn. Her mind screamed monster. Her memories whispered friend. The destroyer looked at her. His blade hung at his side, stained with the battle, but his voice was quiet when he spoke. "They will come again." The girl swallowed hard. "Because of me?" He nodded. "You are the reason. They know." Her chest tightened. "Then go. If I am the reason, leave me. If you stay, they will only keep coming." For a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. His eyes burned like dying stars, filled not with rage, but something far more painful. Finally, he said, "I cannot." The girl stepped back, her voice shaking. "Why? You don't belong here. You don't belong with me. You belong to war, to fear, to destruction." His jaw tightened. "I belong nowhere. Except here." The villagers gasped at his words, their fear growing. To them, it was madness, a nightmare claiming their village as his home. But the girl heard something different. Not pride, not a threat, a plea. That night, the village elders gathered. Their decision was quick and harsh. "He cannot stay," they said. "He brings danger. He will bring death to us all. You must send him away." The girl listened in silence, her hands trembling. She knew they were not wrong. Every time he came, danger followed. Armies hunted him. Enemies wanted her. Keeping him close meant keeping death close. But her heart would not let go. When she left the meeting, she found him waiting outside the village. He sat on a stone, staring at the stars. His massive frame looked smaller in the darkness, as if the weight of the galaxy pressed on his shoulders. She walked slowly toward him. For a while, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "They want you gone." He did not move. "I know. You should go." He turned to her, his eyes glowing faintly. "Do you want me to?" The question cut through her like a blade. Did she? If he stayed, her world would never be safe. If he left, her heart would never be whole. The girl sank to the ground beside him. Her small hands touched the cold armor of his arm. "I don't know," she admitted. Her voice shook, tears filling her eyes. "When I see you fight, I'm afraid. Afraid of what you are. Afraid of what you can do. But when you sit here, when you listen to my stories, when you carry wood for my fire, I see someone else. Someone I can't turn away from." The destroyer's chest rose with a heavy breath. He looked at her hand resting on his arm, so small, so fragile. "I am both," he said at last. "Monster, and more. I cannot change what I am. But with you, I am not only that." The girl's tears fell freely now. She remembered the night. She found him, wounded and broken. She remembered his silence as he listened to her laughter. She remembered his gentleness, hidden beneath the armor of a nightmare. And she remembered the fear she felt when he unleashed his fury. It was all true. He was death. But he was also life. Her voice was quiet when she spoke again. "The galaxy will never love you. I know. They will never forgive you. I know." She took a deep breath, her eyes shining with tears. "But I do." The destroyer froze. For all the battles he had fought, for all the blood he had spilled, no moment had ever struck him like this. Not victory, not defeat, only her words. Slowly, carefully, as if afraid to break her, he lowered his massive hand and let it rest in hers. The galaxy would never understand. The galaxy would always call him a monster. But this one human girl had given him something no empire, no army, no world ever had. Acceptance. Yet even as their hands touched, the shadows of war grew darker. Far beyond the stars, the hunters prepared larger fleets. They had failed twice, but they would not fail again. The weakness was clear. The girl was the heart of the monster, and to break him, they only had to break her. The destroyer knew it. The girl knew it too. Their bond was strong now, unshaken by fear. But with strength came danger. The choice had been made. She chose to stand with him. He chose to protect her, and together they would face the storm the galaxy was preparing. The galaxy trembled. Across countless worlds, the name of the destroyer spread once more. Fleets were gathering, empires sharpening their blades, hunters, preparing their traps. They had failed many times, but this time they were certain. They had found his weakness. The human girl. On her small planet, life seemed quiet, but silence carried danger. She knew now that her world would never be safe. Not while the galaxy hated him. Not while they wanted to use her to break him. Still, she did not turn away. She stayed at his side, her hand small in his massive one. "Why?" she asked one night, looking up at him as they sat by the river. "Why fight for me? You could vanish, you could run, you could leave me, and the galaxy would stop chasing." The destroyer shook his head, his voice deep and steady. "I can fight whole worlds," he said, "but not life without you." Her heart ached at the words. She knew the truth. He was not just feared. He was hated. Entire star systems cursed him. To them, he was death. But to her, he was more. When the fleets finally came, the skies filled with fire. Dozens of ships descended, their weapons pointed toward the little planet. Villagers screamed, running for cover. The earth shook, with thunder as shadows covered the land. The girl stood at the edge of the village, fear clawing at her chest. The destroyer stood in front of her, tall and unshaken, his blade glowing like a star pulled from the sky. The hunters called down through their speakers, "Monster, your reign of terror ends tonight. Hand over the human and we will grant you mercy. The destroyer raised his head, his voice echoing like thunder. She is mine, and mercy is not yours to give. The battle began. Ships fired beams of light, scorching the ground. Explosions tore the fields apart. Soldiers poured from the sky, thousands of them, their armor gleaming. The destroyer roared, charging into the storm. His blade cut through wave after wave, his body moving like a force of nature. He was fury, fire, and shadow, everything the galaxy had feared for centuries. But behind every strike, every roar, was not hatred, not hunger for power. It was love. The love for the one human, girl who had seen him not as a monster but as more. The girl watched, her heart in her throat. She wanted to scream for him to stop, to run, to save himself. But she also saw the truth. Every movement he made, every soldier he crushed, was to keep her alive. He was not fighting for the galaxy. He was not fighting for conquest. He was fighting for her. Hours passed. The ground was littered with broken machines and silent soldiers. The skies burned with falling ships. The destroyer stood tall, his armor cracked, his body bleeding but still unbroken. The surviving fleets pulled back, their commanders shaken. Even united, even prepared, they could not defeat him. His rage was too great, his strength too unstoppable. They fled into the stars, their voices trembling with fear. He cannot be beaten, they whispered. He is death itself. The galaxy would remember this day not as their victory, but as proof of why he was feared. When the last ship vanished, silence returned. The destroyer staggered, his strength fading. For the first time, the girl ran to him, not with fear, but with tears in her eyes. "You're hurt," she cried, pressing her hands against his wounds. He looked down at her, his eyes dimming. "It does not matter, you are safe." Her tears fell harder. She shook her head. "No, it does matter. You matter." The words struck him like lightning. For centuries he had been told only that he was a curse, a nightmare, a monster. But here was one human girl, trembling but unafraid, telling him he mattered. The villagers came out slowly, their eyes filled with awe and terror. They would never welcome him. To them, he would always be death. They would always fear him. But the girl stood in front of him, her voice clear. "He is not just a monster. He is my friend, my protector, my choice." Her words carried no power to change the galaxy, but they carried power enough to change him. The destroyer looked at her, his chest heavy with something no battle had ever given him. Not victory, not survival, but peace. He knew then what his fate would be. The galaxy would never love him. The galaxy would never forgive him. To them, he would always be the destroyer, the shadow that haunted their stars. But he did not need their love. He did not need their forgiveness, because he had hers. That night, when the fires of battle faded and the stars shone once more, the destroyer sat beside the girl on the edge of the ruined fields. She leaned against him, small and fragile against his massive form. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. He shook his head. His deep voice rumbled with quiet certainty. "No. To the galaxy, I am feared. To you, I am enough." She smiled, through her tears, her hand resting in his, and for the first time in all the endless years of his life, the destroyer felt what it meant to be more than a monster.